Hey, yesterday I was having a conversation between a CEO and a new hire on the executive team about how they're going to work together. I wasn't involved in the hiring process, but I'm often asked to do leadership assessment on people as to their ability to really engage and develop as a great leader in an organization, whether it's a church, whether it's a business, whether it's in a nonprofit of some type, whatever the environment is. I'm often asked, can you come alongside and help us figure out, are we getting the right kind of person in this role? And so usually I'm not involved on the technical side. I can't tell you this is a great neurosurgeon or, this particular, pastor or a nonprofit leader is the best technically in their ability or in their field. But I can give feedback around leadership and how that works in the context of those competencies. So I was looking around for some information around how do people know they're hiring the right people? How do we know that we're getting the right folks into our organization, particularly at high levels? And I came across some information I had. It goes back about a decade, and it kind of struck me, and I wondered, is this still true today? Michael Murphy wrote a book called Hiring for Attitude, and at the time, and I think this is great, was emphasizing you can't just hire people that are competent and have the skill sets. There's a lot more to having a great leader, as we know, than just can they do the job. So things like this were measured. Coachability. So when you're hiring, here's 5 reasons new hires fail. And they did this research around this hiring, and they failed because 26% of the failures were coachability related. People weren't coachable. 23% were EQ issues. They just couldn't understand and manage emotions well. 17% motivation. They didn't have the drive to do the job. 15% attitude and personality. They didn't connect, or maybe things were rubbing off in the wrong way in the environment. And the last one was, at the lowest level, was 11% was competence. In other words, people failed because of competence, only 11%. So they're emphasizing the right things in the sense of often it's not competence where people fail and are ultimately fired. It's these other, call them relational and coaching and environmental factors. So they're real important. So we were having conversation about how are they going to work together. And we covered communication styles and desires and how they'll connect, and feedback. How will it be given? How often? How is it best given so someone grows and develops? How is authority and power going to be handled? Who has decision rights on what? What gets delegated? Who owns what? Things like shared values, what are they? How about our leadership styles? Do they kind of butt up a little bit against each other? We're going to have to work on our extremely different styles. Are they more alike? Are we more in sync in how we lead? What are expectations for our work together, and how will we, manage all that as we meet together? So those were the kinds of things that are environmental, and they are the how side. But I realize there is still this baseline of competency, and though people often are not fired because they are incompetent, they sometimes perform poorly because they're not competent. So when you're hiring, make sure, yes, you have these EQ kinds of things, and make sure people are relatable and can engage and can navigate a variety of personalities and settings. Really important. But you've got to have that baseline of core competencies. So there are leader competencies and job competencies. Job competencies are sometimes easier to kind of check the box on. Here's the 4 or 5 key things. Can they do them? Great. But what kind of leader will they be? Can they think strategically? For example, I was working with someone who was a really great person, great operationally, great on execution, could not think strategically. And they were at the highest level of leadership. And I think they got in there because they do a lot of things well, and they're a great person, but there was a core competency missing from a leadership standpoint. So they could do the role, so to speak, but not bring strategic thinking at the level that was now being required by the organization. So pay attention to competency. It really is important. But the thing that can be often the make it or break it is the kind of culture and environment that is being created by a leader or a person. And that's what you need to pay attention to just as well. So I wonder if what was going on 10 years ago, if we do another data snap, today, what would be the things that people are fired for? What do you think? Relational, environmental, competency? Take a look at your organization and see what you see and see what you need. But think, are we hiring great people, and how do we know?